Former Government Minister Lenard Montoute, in a strongly worded statement during Thursday's press conference, accused Prime Minister Philip J Pierre of peddling lies on the Robert Lindquist investigation over who was responsible for discontinuing the probe.
The Prime Minister falsely stated that the investigation was stopped in 2016, and I'm quoting him here now. The investigation was stopped in 2016 as the United Workers' Party administration that came into office that year did not authorize its continuation, unquote. On the contrary, Mr. Robert Lindquist, who, for the benefit of those who are not familiar, is the consultant who was hired to carry out the investigation. In his letter of 7th December 2020, he stated the reason for his stoppage, which the Prime Minister has access to and can reference if he cares to. Mr. Lindquist, in that letter, indicated, and I quote, "Please note that while in the midst of this investigation, the former Prime Minister," referring to former Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony, "announced the 2016 elections of which I had no advance knowledge, which resulted in a halt in my work." Those are the words of Mr. Robert Lindquist. Hence, the resulting work product, referring to the investigation, is incomplete.
Montoute then proceeded to call on the Prime Minister to lead by example.
The Prime Minister has to be taken to task for this because by virtue of his position, he plays an influential role and set the tone for the rest of the country.
News Force conducted a search of the Robert Lindquist website, lindquistforensics.com, where the following statement on the investigations was found, which reads, quote, "The investigation has not been completed. In June 2016, an election was held and the government that had retained Lindquist lost the election. The new government has not asked Lindquist to continue," unquote. Prime Minister Pierre, in a telephone interview with News Force on Thursday afternoon, said had the UWP administration of 2016-2021 been interested in the findings of the investigations, or had they been convinced of the innocence of their members, they would have continued the investigation. They, he said, chose not to.
If the government was interested in finding out what was in the Lindquist report, if they really wanted to find out whether they were innocent or not, they would have continued the work. Because Mr. Lincoln said there's a halt in his work and the work product is incomplete. So let us just summarize it. There's public knowledge that an investigation is going on. You are in government. The investigation is about some of the top members of your government. The investigator writes and he says there's a halt in my work and the work product is incomplete. So if you are interested in finding the results, if you are not afraid of the results, won't you let the investigation continue? So that's very simple. So all these aspersions at my character, they do not hold water.
Montoute further states that the United Workers' Party only learnt of the investigation during the reign of the 2016-2021 administration when back in office following the payments to Robert Lindquist.
When the United Workers' Party assumed office in 2016, we had no clue that there was this investigation taking place. No one informed us officially that this was in progress. And the cabinet, the Prime Minister and the cabinet of the United Workers' Party became aware when there was a payment that was made to Mr. Robert Lindquist.
Prime Minister Pierre says contrary to the claim made by Mr. Montoute, the investigation by Robert Lindquist was public knowledge before 2016.
Abundantly clear. The former Prime Minister, Dr. Kenny Anthony, made a public statement that Robert Lindquist was conducting a forensic investigation on the HIA statement. That is a fact. So to say that he was not aware of it, or he was not aware of it, is untrue, because it was public knowledge that Lindquist was carrying out an investigation. There were articles in the papers, the articles in the Miami Herald, etc. Speaking of that.
There was also the accusation that Robert Lindquist did not want to provide the Allen Chastanet-led administration with information on the investigation. But according to the very letter quoted by Mr. Montoute, dated December 7, 2020, in the third paragraph, Lindquist stated his willingness to provide the then administration with the, quote, work products and supporting documents, unquote, on condition that they make payment of US $1,500 for out-of-pocket costs and they sign the release form. Stanley Lucian for the HS News Force.